In Season 3, Episode 7 of Invincible, we will witness the entire event of the Invincible War where Angstrom, one of Invincible's most prevalent nemesis, would go to alternate universes where Invincible turned out to be evil rather than good, and recruit as many Evil Invincible Variants as possible in order to raid and conquer the main universe with the intention of taking it over and eliminating our Invincible while doing so. Of course, our Invincible didn't single-handedly take on dozens of variations of himself all at once and somehow hold them off. Instead, many different superpowered individuals, majority good but some bad, came together in separate groups in order to fend off the invasion and fight off each Invincible variant who was assigned to a certain area. Interestingly enough, we would see that majority of the Invincibles were defeated by many different characters in the cast, and we would be able to tell which Invincible that each group of characters took out, all except for one. Powerplex. Powerplex is one of the two characters who was able to defeat one of the Invincible variants alone, but unlike majority of matchups, we don't exactly know which Invincible was defeated by him, as he burnt the variant to a crisp, and there were so many Invincible variants sent out to fight and not enough focus placed on each of them, so it's really hard to tell. Not only this, but we don't see him engage the variant at all. We only get a cut to him over the variant's burnt body after the events of day 3. So in this video, I intend to give a bit of background to Powerplex's inclusion in the Invincible War, go over the Invincible variants to narrow down our answer by process of elimination, and then I'll give you my best shot at guessing which Invincible variant that Powerplex defeated. With that said, the intro's dragging a bit, and since I value the time of both you and I'm gonna cut it short and get straight into the video. Now, when the events of the Invincible War actually kick off, Powerplex is funnily enough one of the first characters we actually see in the war, as Mark begins his participation with arriving at the same prison Powerplex was once held at, only to find a Mohawk variation of him terrorizing the entire prison. After Mohawk Mark realizes that our Mark wasn't an evil variant but instead the variant of the world he was invading, he would begin to attack him, but our Mark would hold his own and knock him out for a second, only to be attacked by other heroes who thought he was one of the imposters. As all of this would happen, Powerplex would escape from the prison all of these characters were currently at, but see Mohawk Mark getting ready to attack our Invincible once more, only to attack the Mohawk Mark before he could do so. This gets Powerplex somehow knocked out by this variant of Mark, and after Powerplex is knocked out, some other events take place in the episode, and we cut to Mohawk Mark defeated once more, only for him to wake up again after our Mark decides to leave the area. This episode was a little bit all over the place as we can see. Now you would think that this would make the video simple. Powerplex, a few heroes, and Mohawk Mark are all still at the prison, but nope. When we finally come back to the prison after witnessing all of the other Invincible variants have their own battles and events take place, we see that Powerplex is still alive and standing over a charred body. Not only this, but Mohawk Mark is one of the few variants to actually make it out of the Invincible War and be successful in destroying a major part of the world. So despite Mohawk Mark being the only Invincible variant we see Powerplex interact with, he's not the one that was defeated by him. This is where the mystery that plagues the community currently comes from, because now we have to figure out who Powerplex defeated. Funnily enough, there's a chance I could do all of this investigation only to find out that he dropped a guy that only looked like Mark rather than an actual variant. Anyway, let's get back on track and go over all of the Invincible variants in order to track down and find out who Powerplex actually defeated, or at least get enough data to make an educated guess. To begin, there are 18 known variants of Invincible, and I think the easiest way to begin this process of elimination is to knock out each of the Invincible variants that we see at the end of episode 7, which are Mohawk Mark, Masked Mark, Omni Mark, Sinister Mark, Ugly Mark, Viltrumite Mark, Slave Master Mark, and I Miss William Mark. These guys are all still alive, and they're in a completely different dimension. So these 8 marks are obviously not the ones who were taken out by Powerplex, and that lets us remove a decent chunk of the known variants from the list quick and easy. At this point, we have 10 left. Now let's move on to all the other variants who are now dead and easy to track. First, we'll go to the most memorable Invincible, which is the insane one, or most people call him, No Gogglesable. This is the Invincible variant that Immortal was fighting for most of the war, and he would eventually defeat Immortal and the other Guardians. This would lead up to Nightwing coming in clutch and trapping him in another dimension, permanently removing him from the main universe while sacrificing himself to do so. Since we know that this guy was taken out by battlefield removal, he's not the victim. Now we have the Invincible who fought Rexplode, Gogglvincible, which was the one who was taken out by Rexplode when he do a kamikaze to allow everybody else to escape. Last of the dead and easy to track are the Flaxen and Bulletproof Invincible Variants. These are the variants who were defeated by Cecil and all of the government tech he has access to. This removes 4 of the more memorable variants that we've actually seen be taken out by characters on screen, leaving us with 6 potential Powerplex victims we have left to cover. We can cross out 2 more hairy Invincible variants who we didn't really see fight much. First is the Mustache Invincible, who was shown to be eliminated by Tech Jacket, and then the one with the long hair who was shown to be defeated by Oliver and a few other characters. And since their bodies are intact and all, they cannot be the ones that Powerplex cooked. In that same montage, we see that another Invincible, which is the one with the tracksuit, is dead and in a crater. There's also another Invincible who wears a light blue suit, and this one wasn't shown to be defeated by anybody on screen, but we do see him come back as a reanimant, which wouldn't be possible if Powerplex had been the one to defeat him. This removes 2 more potential victims, and now we have 2 suspects left, Capvincible and Hooded Invincible. At this point, these are our 2 primary subjects, as unlike everybody else on the list, we just don't see what happens to them. Capvincible is the variant that Oliver was first fighting when he would join the Invincible War, but aside from their initial confrontation that we didn't even get the conclusion to, we don't see him anymore after that, and he kind of just disappears. Hoodvincible, on the other hand, was fighting our Invincible and Eve earlier in the Invincible War alongside Omnimark, but once Mark and Eve would back off and retreat, Reanimen would come from the sky and pounce on the 2 variants, and we would never see the Hooded Invincible again, despite Omnimark showing up later. Between these 2, one of these guys certainly got clapped by Powerplex. Although we don't know for certain which one, if I had to take a guess, I would say that the Hooded Invincible is actually the one who fought and lost to Powerplex. I've decided to bet on the Hooded Invincible variant, primarily due to the fact that Omnimark seems to have escaped from the Reanimen pouncing on both him and the Hooded variant, and I believe that the 2 working together were more than capable of defeating those Reanimen, and then they more than likely split up to cover more ground, as that was their initial plan. This would lead to the Hooded Mark finding Powerplex and being eliminated by him. Second, a lot of people came to the conclusion that the Reanimen were somehow able to put down Hooded Invincible. But if they were capable of doing that, then how did Omnimark get out unscathed? I would think they'd be able to at least cause some serious damage to him, especially after beating on him if they were able to take him down. But it really seems as if he breezed through the entire Invincible War as a whole. These are the primary reasons I believe that Hooded Mark was the one that Powerplex took out. As for the logic behind Capvincible not being the one that Powerplex defeated, I'm more willing to believe that Oliver with some help was able to defeat him when they initially met, and then move on to the other one 2 days later, rather than some Reanimen somehow leaving Omnimark unscathed, taking out Hoodvincible, and Capvincible somehow getting away from Oliver on day 1 and getting to Powerplex. Oliver more than likely took out Capvincible when they first met, as Oliver isn't really the type to let anybody escape from him anyway. Even if Capvincible were to retreat, we know Oliver is stupid and stubborn enough to follow him to the ends of the earth in order to confirm that victory. In which case, we'd see him standing right alongside Powerplex in the shot of him claiming his victory over the Invincible variant. So yeah, this about completes my little analysis or investigation on the topic. I don't really have much more to say, to be honest, so I'm gonna wrap up the video here. I think that the Hooded Invincible was the one that Powerplex took out. Now I gotta ask, do you guys think my conclusion was correct? If not, tell me which Invincible variant you believe that Powerplex took out in the comments below, because I'm still not even 100% certain myself. With that said, thank you guys for everything, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.